Have you ever wondered what would happen if someone tried to mess with a police dog? Well, let me tell you, when an HOA decides to cross that line, things can turn upside down very fast. This story is not just about a dog. It's about loyalty, respect, and the biggest mistake a neighborhood committee ever made. It all started on a quiet morning. My dog, Max, was outside in the backyard, enjoying the sunshine. Max isn't just any dog. He's a certified K-9 officer. He has served on the front lines, trained with the police department, and put his life on the line to protect people. To me, he's family. To the community, he's a hero. But to the HOA, apparently, he was nothing more than a problem. From the very beginning, the HOA board members had issues with me. Maybe it was because I didn't attend their silly monthly meetings. Maybe it was because I didn't agree with every ridiculous rule they tried to force on residents. Or maybe, deep down, they just want to control. And when people crave control, they often go after what matters most to you. For me, that was Max. One day, I received a letter in the mailbox. It was written in bold letters, "Noise complaint, violation notice." According to the HOA, my dog barked too much. They claimed Max was disturbing the peace. But here's the thing, Max doesn't bark without reason. He's trained to stay calm unless he senses danger. He isn't some wild dog that barks at every passing car or falling leaf. He's disciplined, focused, and professional. I ignored the letter, thinking it was just a misunderstanding. But the next week, another notice showed up. This time, the tone was harsher. Failure to comply will result in further action. That's when I knew this wasn't just about noise. This was personal. Soon after, something shocking happened. I came home one afternoon to see a white truck parked outside my house. On the side it read, "Animal Control." My stomach dropped. 2 officers were standing near my gate, clipboard in hand, ready to take my dog away. I walked straight up to them and asked, "What's going on here?" One of the officers replied, "We received a complaint from your HOA. They claimed your dog is aggressive and a threat to the neighborhood." I couldn't believe my ears. Aggressive? Threat? They were talking about Max, the same dog who had sniffed out explosives, rescued missing kids, and never once harmed an innocent person. I looked at the officer and said firmly, "This dog is not just a pet. He's a certified K-9 officer. He has a badge number, he has training records, and he has more discipline than half the people living in this community." The officer looked surprised. "Is that true?" he asked. I pulled out Max's certification papers, which I always keep handy. The officer scanned through the documents, his eyes widening as he realized exactly who Max was. "Ma'am, I think there's been a mistake," he said. "We don't usually get calls like this." And right there, I knew the HOA had crossed a dangerous line. They had lied to animal control just to try and get my dog removed. But here's where things get interesting. See, when you make a false report to an official agency, it doesn't just vanish. It becomes a record. It becomes evidence. And in this case, it became the rope the HOA was about to hang themselves with. I contacted my lawyer immediately. I explained what had happened, and he shook his head in disbelief. "They don't realize what they've done," he said. "Not only did they lie, but they also tried to interfere with a certified law enforcement animal. That's a federal issue. This could get very ugly for them." And he was right. In the following weeks, the HOA doubled down. They sent more letters, more threats, and even tried to fine me hundreds of dollars for non-compliance. But with every letter, they only dug their hole deeper, because now I had proof. Proof that they were harassing me. Proof that they were targeting my dog. Proof that they were abusing their authority. The final straw came when the HOA president himself showed up at my doorstep. He stood there, arms crossed, with a smug look on his face. "You need to get rid of that dog," he said coldly. "Or else." I couldn't help but laugh. "Or else what?" I asked. He smirked and replied, "Or else we'll make sure he's gone one way or another." That was it. That was the moment I knew they had gone too far. Threatening me was one thing, but threatening Max? That was a fight they would regret starting. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "Do you realize who you're talking about?" That dog has more honor than you will ever have. He has saved lives, served his country, and earned his place in this home. And you think you can just erase that with a letter? Good luck. From that day forward, the battle lines were drawn. The HOA had declared war on me and my dog. But what they didn't know was that I wasn't fighting alone. Because when you go after a K-9 officer, you're not just going after one person. You're going after the law itself. This story doesn't end with fear. It doesn't end with defeat. It ends with justice. And trust me, justice was about to hit this HOA harder than they ever imagined. So stick around, because in the next part of this story, you'll see exactly how the HOA's plan backfired in the most spectacular way. You'll see how lies turned into lawsuits, and how a loyal dog became the symbol of standing up against corruption. Do you know what happens when a group of power-hungry people push their luck too far? They fall hard. And in this case, the HOA didn't just fall, they crumbled under the weight of their own lies. After that ugly confrontation at my doorstep, I knew it was time to take action. No more waiting. No more hoping they would just stop. This was war, and if they wanted to fight, I was ready to give them one. The first step was gathering evidence. I kept every single letter they sent me. I recorded every conversation, including the one where the HOA president threatened me directly. And of course, I had the official report from Animal Control, showing that they had been called under false pretenses. That stack of evidence grew taller and taller until it was undeniable. The HOA had been targeting me and my dog unfairly. My lawyer was almost giddy with the case. They've broken multiple laws, he explained. They file false complaints. They harass you repeatedly, and they try to interfere with a certified K-9 officer. That's not just harassment, that's criminal. Now, let me pause for a second. Imagine the arrogance it takes for a group of neighborhood board members to think they can just erase the career of a dog who has served in law enforcement. A dog who has put his life on the line to protect strangers. That's the level of foolishness we were dealing with. As the lawsuit moved forward, the HOA tried everything to cover their tracks. They suddenly stopped sending letters. They acted like nothing had ever happened. But the truth doesn't just vanish because you ignore it. Their signatures were on those notices. Their words were on those recordings. And their lies were documented in black and white. Finally, the day of the court hearing arrived. I walked in with Max by my side, his head held high, his badge clipped to his harness. You could feel the respect in the room the moment people realized who he was. Even the judge gave a small nod toward Max, acknowledging his service. On the other side of the courtroom sat the HOA board members, looking nervous and uncomfortable. The president, who once stood on my porch acting tough, now couldn't even make eye contact with me. The case unfolded piece by piece. My lawyer presented the false complaint to Animal Control. He played the recording of the HOA president threatening to make sure my dog was gone. He showed the stack of violation notices, all written without real cause. And with every piece of evidence, the HOA shrank further in their seats. When it was finally the HOA's turn to speak, their excuses were laughable. We were only trying to keep the neighborhood peaceful. We thought the dog was dangerous. We were just following procedure. But the judge wasn't buying it. He leaned forward, looked straight at the HOA president, and asked, "Are you aware that this dog is a certified K-9 officer?" The room went silent. The president hesitated, then stammered, "Oh, we didn't realize." The judge cut him off. "That's not acceptable. You had every opportunity to verify before making these claims. Instead, you lied, you harassed, and you endangered not just the dog but also his handler." At that moment, I felt a surge of relief. Finally, the truth was being spoken out loud. The ruling came swiftly. The HOA was ordered to drop all complaints against me and Max. On top of that, they had to pay for my legal fees and issue a public apology. But the biggest blow? The judge referred their actions to higher authorities for investigation. That meant potential fines, potential removal from their positions, and possible criminal charges for filing false reports. Justice. Sweet, undeniable justice. But here's the part that still makes me smile. Word spread quickly around the community about what had happened. Neighbors who once stayed silent started coming forward. They admitted they had also been harassed by the HOA for ridiculous reasons. Everything from the color of their curtains to the type of plants in their yard. Suddenly, the whole neighborhood realized they weren't alone. The HOA had ruled with fear for too long, but now, people weren't afraid anymore. They were angry, and that anger grew into a movement. Within months, a petition circulated to remove the entire board. The same people who once thought they could bully everyone out of obedience were voted out of power. And what about Max? Well, Max became a legend. The local police department held a small ceremony to honor him, not just for his service as a K-9 officer, but also for standing strong in the face of injustice. Kids in the neighborhood started stopping by to pet him, calling him the hero dog. People brought treats, toys, and even thank you cards. Max had gone from being labeled a threat to being recognized as the symbol of loyalty and courage he truly was. As for me, I learned something powerful. Bullies only win when you stay quiet. The HOA thought they could scare me into submission, but all they did was expose their own corruption. And thanks to Max, I found the strength to fight back. So, let me ask you this. What would you do if someone tried to take away the one thing that matters most to you? Would you back down, or would you stand up and fight? Because here's the truth. Sometimes life tests us in ways we don't expect. Sometimes it's not just about rules or neighbors or complaints. Sometimes it's about drawing a line in the sand and saying, enough is enough. And if you take anything away from this story, let it be this. Never underestimate the bond between a person and their dog, especially when that dog has already proven to the world that he's a protector, a warrior, and a hero. The HOA learned that lesson the hard way. They tried to erase a hero, and instead, they became the villains of their own story. Backhand index pointing right. If you believe loyalty always wins in the end, hit that like button. Share this story with someone who needs a reminder to stand up for what's right. And don't forget to subscribe, because more stories of justice, resilience, and courage are coming your way. Because sometimes the smallest battles teach us the biggest lessons. And in this battle, a dog named Max taught an entire neighborhood what true strength really looks like.